I'm Sally Aneri, and welcome to Fearless Forward, the podcast that asks leaders how they've faced their fears. Answering that question today is a mountain leader and my neighbour here in the French Alps, Arno de Jong. 17 years ago, Arno and his wife Jess took the huge step of uprooting themselves from their native home in the Netherlands for a completely new life in the mountains. Packing all their possessions into their tiny Volkswagen Polo, they set off into an unknown future. An added incentive to succeed in what Arno calls their crazy adventure was the fact that several million viewers of a Dutch TV reality show were also following their progress. By the time the TV crew returned 10 years later to make a follow-up programme, Arno had qualified as both a French mountain leader and a mountain bike guide. He and Jess had 2 bilingual sons and 2 successful businesses. I've known Arno for much of that time, and I've seen him leading everything from year-round, full-on mountain adventures to snowshoe excursions and mindful hikes with me on our Evolving Leadership programme. It was on one of these in June this year that he told us about a scary experience he'd had in the mountains last winter. So I've invited him here today to share that story with us and what he learned from it.
Yeah, it was, I think, exactly a year ago. And my good friend Anton, who I know since I was 7 or 8 years old, so that's 40 years now, we always meet each other in the autumn because the autumn is the quiet time for me. So between the autumn holiday and the Christmas holiday, it's a bit of, the season is really on a halt. And I can guarantee him that I can be present for him and having a nice adventure together in the mountains. And once we slept on the peak above your formal house on the Point des Salles, you know well, it's in your book, it's on your pictures. And I took Anton to the very summit of it and we slept on the summit. But it was so small that only I could be on that summit, and he slept like 5 meters below because there was not enough space for us both because it was not flat enough to have 2 people. So that was one of the first one we've done, and the tone was set. And I think every year, I don't want to say we pushed it more, but we knew. I think I also invested a bit in his knowledge and his skills, and also he invested in his gear. And every year we knew a bit better. I knew a bit better why I could take him and what we could do. And then last year we planned this trip end of November. And I was like, okay, where do I take Anton this time? And I checked the weather. I have been in Holland with the family for a week or something. And when I was in Holland, it has been snowing quite a lot. My friends were ski touring, like we often do with the first November snow. And I was coming back from Holland into the Alps, and I missed that winter transition. So I was again a bit in that after summer mode, in that Indian summer mode, because the snow was already melted. It was quite warm again. But like, you know what, I can take him a bit higher again because the snow is melted pretty much again. So I hasn't been in the mountain for a few weeks. And then the weather forecasted pretty good weather, especially the first day, nice and sunny, like 15 degrees. And then the second day, a little risk of some precipitation, which could result in 5 to 10 centimeters of snow higher up. And I was like, well, is this a game changer? I was like, well, 5-10 centimeters on what is there now can't really be a problem. So let's stick to the plan to take him a bit higher to the Anterne area. And another thing, I knew, I know there's a nice shepherd hut, and I've been there twice. And it's a really good located place if you want a ski tour from Chamonix to our area, or vice versa. But then that hut got closed with a lock and you couldn't go there anymore. And then my friend and guide, Serge, he said, like, oh no, I've been crossing that hut and it's open again. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's great news. Then we can use it again. But I was like, before really arriving there in the middle of the winter, desperate looking for a hut, I was like, let's check it first if he is right and if that one is unlocked. So voila, that's where we go.
Okay. So what happened?
So we took off for an adventure. Better safe than sorry. I was like, well, you never know. We go quite alpine. The weather might be a bit more harsh. We don't know exactly what to expect. So we took snowshoes. Of course, we took poles. We took the snow safety gear. So avalanche beacon, probe, and shovel. I took a shelter so we could make a shelter if needed. We took mattress, inflatable mattress, sleeping bags. Well, everything to, let's say, survive a November day in the mountains, and then we took off, and then quite quickly I realized that there was more snow than I actually expected. So the snow level was a bit lower, and also there was more snow on the ground lasted than I expected, and also could see from the side I'm living really. So apparently there was just more snow has fallen that 2 weeks earlier. So there was a very an early little surprise, which is not really a problem, but that slowed us a little bit down. So we had to put the snowshoes a bit earlier than I expected. The only thing that worried a little bit was like, is this hut really unlocked? And then we actually watched back this video 2 days ago, those last seconds when we arrived at the hut, and it's already dark, and we approached the hut, and then we approached the door, and I look at it, and it's like, oh no, there's a lock.
What did you do?
At a certain point, he pointed at a little window high up, and I was like, yeah, you're right, because when I was in before, I remembered seeing that window from the inside, and it was a sort of a security exit or entrance. And I remember that, like, hey, in worst case scenario, it's good to remember that that's another way in. And we were desperate. We were like, we definitely better spend the night somewhere inside in these pretty harsh conditions. But then I saw that window, and I climbed on the roof. I could reach out to that window and the emergency exit, and I could open it from the roof. And so then we had a little window, which was like 40 by 60 centimeters open at 4 meters above the ground. So still no way to get in. And then we were both, okay, this is open. This is our way into a safe shelter. The only thing we can do now, we have to make snow stairs. And then we start cutting snow blocks. And I think we've been building 1.5 hours, completely exhausted as we were. And we built a snow stairs, which was about 1.5 meters high. And then we put one backpack on top of that, and the other was holding the backpack. Then another could step on that backpack and reach the window. And then we could get into the emergency exit. And honestly, it was a massive job. It was a massive job because sometimes the snow is a bit too soft and it collapses again. And you have to step on it. So it needs to carry 80 kilograms. And I think I first went, then I grabbed the backpacks, and then he came in. And I've got a picture from the inside that we were in, and I was already down. And then Anton was still sitting there as a bird in the corner of that chalet, 4 meters above the ground. And then another challenge was how to get down from there into the chalet. There was like proper climbing down. So honestly, we were exhausted. We were tired. We were cold. But then, we finally made our way down to the floor of the chalet. And we felt so like, what an achievement. And we're really proud of ourselves. And we're like, alrighty, mission succeeded. We can spend the night, wait for that 5-10 centimeter snow tomorrow, and then see how the plan goes tomorrow.
And what I'm hearing is you had a very clear goal, really clear, that you needed to get into that window. This was the way to do it. There wasn't really any other way, and you had to do it, just do it, so to speak. That was a scenario in which that kind of clarity was helpful, I'm imagining. And plus you had the physical strength, you had the experience, both of you. You were also the right shape and size to get through the window, even if it was tricky. A number of things came together, didn't they, that made all of this possible in that moment. Okay, so what happened next?
Well, then we were in, and it's a very basic thing. It's just a concrete floor. There's a sort of a little mezzanine, like a wooden little floor where there is a door, and behind there was a sort of a bed with a few mattresses, a bit like, a very old, worn out mini refuge de montagne. The weird thing was, though, that the only window and the only connection to the outside was the window 4 meters high we came through. So as soon as we were in that place, there was no way we could connect with the world outside. So we had no idea what the weather was doing. We didn't know if it was, of course, it was already dark, but we couldn't see the light coming up the next morning. So we climbed in our sleeping bags, made a nice adventure food meal. I think we brought both a beer, and we were so happy and pleased. And we were sort of proud of ourselves, of course, that we made it. And then we only had to wait for the next day. and completely confident about the next day, I think I dare to say.
Okay, so there you are, exhilarated. You had a good adventure meal, you had a beer, you had a good night's sleep, and then you woke up.
Yeah, then we woke up. We had a little breakfast, we had a coffee, we had a chat. I remember getting the map out and telling Anton my plan, because it's me with I'm the man with the plan, thanks to my profession. And then to the point, it was about time to leave the place. We took maybe a little bit too much time again, because I didn't expect crazy things that day. So we took it quite easy, and then we were like, okay, we're almost ready. Let's get out. And then I opened the shutter. I climbed up another 4 meters again. I think we had to create something there as well at the inside. We used some things to make a ladder and the stairs as well from the inside to get to that 4 meters again. I opened the shutter, and then I was quiet for a few seconds, because what I saw scared me a bit. Because I was like, Anton, we've got snow, and we've got a lot of snow. Shit. And then a lot of things went to my mind, like, oh shit, this was not expected. This was not according plan. This is not 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. This is at least already 25 centimeters of snow, and it's still snowing. And honestly, right at that moment, a lot of things go through your head. It's like, it's that risk assessment thing, the winter risk assessment. Like, okay, there's a lot of snow. How steep are the slopes we have to cross? Has there been any wind? Is there any weird layer that creates a weak layer and things can slide upon? It's mostly avalanche risk. It's like 25 centimeters of fresh snow in the Alpine can mean avalanche risk. And avalanche risk is the biggest risk in the winter in the mountains, let's be honest.
Certainly a high-risk situation, right? And so you were doing your risk assessment in the moment with all of your experience, all of your knowledge, lots to fall back on, and you're the man with the plan. So Anton sounds as if he was okay, because Arno's the man with a plan. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's exactly how he acts, and he acted like that as well. So yeah. A bit like, okay, so what's your idea? And we already talked through plan B and C, and because plan B would have been like going back to where we come from. That's of course always a solution, isn't it? Going back to where you come from. But I actually eliminated that plan B straight away, because I was like, and that's always an interesting thing. If you got visibility, you always should make the most of scanning the landscape. So if you go up on day one, you scan landscapes, you try to spot things, you try to remember things, and you also try to recognize danger or cruxes you already saw on your map, for example, a little steep part or a little gully or whatsoever. And then with your bare eyes, you can see it and spot it and then judge it. So we've been walking for a long time, maybe several hours, under a slope of 35 degrees, with maybe even a steeper part below our track. So I said to Anton, I don't want to go to plan B, because I don't feel good to cross those steep slopes with so much snow has been fallen. So I suggested to him, honestly, I think we should stick to plan A, but that's what the choice was. So we prepared ourselves, made our backpacks ready, get some water from the icy stream, and off we went. And we gave it a go, and we knew that there was a big day in front of us. But again, we had to face it. After that stair thing, we're like, well, this is an unexpected extra challenge. And let's go. Let's make day 2 a successful one as well.
You have a lot of experience, but there was a part of you that thought, do I know enough for this direction I'm now heading in? Was that a doubt in your mind?
Yeah, so another word they use for us, mountain leader in French, accompagnateur en montagne, they have been using the word middle mountain guide. So let's say I'm a middle mountain guide. That means middle mountains in the Alps. Middle mountain is that area, let's say trees above the tree line, the snowshoe area, the walking mountains. I'm also a mountain bike guide. But there's also the Alpine, and the Alpine is the domain of the high mountain guide. I was like, yes, this is my domain. If there's only maximum 5 to 10 centimeters of snow, I will be fine. But when the 25 centimeters snow was there, I was like, oh shit, this is a bit end of my comfort zone.
So you set off, and what happened?
We set off, and straight away, I realized that we had very cold, fresh snow fallen on icy old snow. And we were on snowshoes. Luckily, we brought snowshoes because otherwise you could even think of plan A. So we had snowshoes and they work well. But again, they work well in middle mountains where things are not too steep. And when there is that icy base with fluffy powder, you sink through the powder and then the crampons of the snowshoes stick into the ice. But it was actually too steep and icy below. But then we found our way and we got up the first steeper part. So let's say 30 degrees plus part. And then with my iPhone often out of my pocket, I had the digital map on my iPhone and I can put it on slope angles. So I can see exactly where the steeper slopes are. So we need to stick to the yellow color. This took us hours to find our way up like that. And around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, we were only halfway or something. And we knew we were only a few hours ahead before dark. And at a certain point, again, we ended up in a little sort of ice waterfall couloir, which was not on my map. And then conditions changed a bit, even more snow. Halfway the day, I think we had about 40 centimeters of snow. It was still snowing. There was no visibility. We couldn't see where we were really. We saw each other. We saw maybe 50 meters. So that was it. And after, halfway the afternoon, we were like, shit, now we really have to be sort of lucky to get up here. Because if we don't have the visibility, and not knowing exactly where we have to climb up, then it's, of course, the map is helping, but I was having some doubts. And at a certain point, I slid away and I shouted something, Anton, I don't know it anymore, man. And he was like, come on. And he tried to support me and coach me. I was like, dude, you're doing really well. We are doing really well. We're already halfway. Come on, we have to keep confident. And we grabbed a Savoyard sausage, took a few bites of it. My phone was almost empty. Easily could have decided not to charge and just continue. But I was like, I'm so relying on this app. I have to charge it, get the power bank out, get it charged, and keep the map. Because if you lose the map, it's after you can't upload it again and you lose it. And this was maybe, I dare to say, almost life-saving. So we charged the phone and we had on. And then, I don't know, it was about 4 o'clock, I think, an hour for dark. We arrived on our last plateau and like, okay, Anton, now it's the crux, and the crux is the last steep slope up to the ridge line, which we have to cross, and then we're safe. And right at that moment, the weather broke open, and we could see where we had to go.
This is extraordinary, Arno. And that moment that the weather broke just in that moment and enabled you to see, that is extraordinary. You might call it a blessing. Certainly way beyond your control, obviously. And also, I'm struck by what you said a little earlier about the moment where you were almost in despair, you the leader, and it was Anton who said, I believe in you. I'm paraphrasing, but I believe in you, Arno. You can do this.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate his confidence and his trust. And he's a strong believer. So he's also believing in God. And he was like, well, I really felt blessed and guided, and you were in between God and me, helping us out of this situation, and that confidence really gave me a boost, and it's really interesting and really good, I think, to dare to be vulnerable. And often, and especially also with clients, I try to be vulnerable, but I really avoid entering any situation like this with clients. I can't imagine and remember anything like this with clients because you can't take that risk. But with a friend, I took the risk. We went for adventure. We got adventure. And then I lost it a bit. And in my vulnerability, I shared with him that I had a big doubt that I had really.
And how important, how vital that you did. Because then he could help you. If you hadn't, he wouldn't have been able to help you because he wouldn't have known.
Yeah, exactly. And then you feel strong together. You're like, yes, man. Yeah. We came here. We can see the summit. And let's get out of this. Okay, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Okay, so you got to that point, the weather cleared, and you were able to see. So what happened then?
Another thing happened. I hit a ping. Ping. I was like, hey, internet. First time that we had any internet connection. So I was like, let's make the use of it, most of it. And I checked my fat map. And my fat map it's a 3D app many mountain people use because it gives you such a good view of where you are and you can turn it, switch it and everything. And actually that one confirmed exactly what I had in mind. Like, okay, this is the only way up, because I remember a few years ago, we went up there with snowshoes as well. Completely different day, spring snow, sunny. And I remember there was one way you could quite easily go up. And that confirmed, so my fat map confirmed, okay, this is where we have to go. That's the line up. But then in that line, with that visibility, I saw a lot of avalanche debris. And someone who doesn't know anything about mountains, or maybe a bit about mountains, would say, wow, that's really stupid to go up in the avalanche zone. And I would say yes and no, because the situation of that avalanche 2 weeks before was completely different, with a lot of snow and then almost summer temperatures and sunshine, that everything slid down in heavy snow, make huge boulders of ice and wet snow, and create avalanche on slopes 30 plus degrees. In this situation, the snow is different, the weather is different. That makes avalanche risk such a difficult thing to judge, because every situation is different. It has so many ingredients. And my judgment was no. This has been a completely different situation. Actually, those blocks of snow can even help us a bit as a sort of a stairs. And I said to Anton, you see that huge thing that rolled down over there, that block of ice, probably a corniche, a thing that hang on the balcony at the summit, came down. And I said, that's a safe spot for us. So we had a bit of visibility, just enough to see where we had to go. And then also it opened so much up that we could see where we were. So we saw the mountains behind us. We could almost see Mont Blanc. And we got sort of really excited about, wow, this is a gift. In many ways, this is a gift. It's just amazing. And then we went for it. And then it became a bit steeper and steeper. And again, snowshoes are not made for this kind of snow. And at a certain point, we're quite high. We're like on 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of the climb. And then it was not far from dark. And it's like, oh shit, we're almost there. But also it feels so far. Like, if anything goes wrong here, it's all for nothing. Then we probably don't make, because then the weather changes again and gets dark. And so we only had one chance to make it up to the highest point. And I start to slip away again because of the icy bottom and too steep of a slope. And I saw Anton slipping away. It's like, shit, he doesn't have much experience on these snowshoes, or less than me. I was already struggling. I was like, oh no. And I was like, Anton, from now on, every step needs to be right. And he remembered me that saying, and every time he's coming back to that, I was like, that made so much, that meant so much to me. Like, he took it really serious. And at a certain point, I took my shovel. And yesterday, the stairs saved us. I was like, again, today, a stair will save us, maybe for the third time even. So I started to dig stairs with my shovel. So I cut steps out of the ice, so the old snow. And then I could put my snowshoe in, and then the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And I think I made like 15 steps vertical up. And Anton I said to him, follow my steps and don't break them. But they were solid, actually, because it was so icy. And then I think 10 meters below the summit, we had a sort of a plateau. And it's probably where the old avalanche once came down and the cornice broke. And so there was a sort of a plateau which felt quite safe. And I was like, dude, now we'll make it. But then there was a new corniche, where it was about 2 meters high. And he was watching me, Arno. And I was like, well, dude, let's use the shovel again. And we dig our way through that 2 meters cornice. There's a sort of a tunnel. And then we popped out. And then we were on the summit, on the ridge, 2.5. And it was still a little bit of visibility. We saw where we were. It was 5 o'clock. So the dark came in. And I think in like 15, 20 minutes, it was almost dark. And we were like, yes, we made it.
Wow, what a moment.
Yeah.
And all of those things, every time you just thought you were, it was done, so to speak, there was another thing. And the moment where you, as you said, Anton remembers it now, is every step counts. Every step has to be right.
Exactly.
Take you through, wasn't it? Such a helpful thing to say, such a helpful kind of attunement, so to speak, of the mind in that moment. Because it was the mind. You had the physical strength. It was the mind that was going to take you through, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's that grit we fill in as mountaineers to do our risk assessment. What could possibly go wrong, or what could go wrong? And how can I be prepared for surprises? And what will be a plan B or even C if this will be the case? And it's this thing that you can fill in. And I did from the very start of our adventure. But definitely from that second day, that morning, you start to fill in that grid. And yeah, the human being is a big part of it, physically, but definitely also mentally.
Yes. So, Arno, you mentioned a formal risk assessment process that you use that you feel could be more widely useful in the corporate context. Perhaps could you just share that with us again, and why you think it's helpful, that it could be applied to any situation?
Yeah, it's a grid with 9 blocks to fill in. So you got the horizontal one. It's conditions, terrain, human being. And then actually you could add a fourth one. And it's the human being can be the client and the leader or the guide. So, and then you've got the vertical one. You've got your preparation in advance. So a few days in advance, or even a few weeks in advance, but definitely a few days or a day in advance. You got the arrival on at the location where your adventure starts. So let's say the parking where you start from. And then you've got the third moment, vertical. The third moment is during the day, during your adventure. And then you can imagine the grid you fill in all the time. So What did I expect conditions-wise? Yes. What do I see conditions-wise? And what do I experience conditions-wise? And so far.
Yeah, it sounds like a really helpful sort of visual, tangible prompt for all the things that, we in any situation, in any difficult project, in any difficult context, if we can just be super realistic about what's on the ground, what's present, then we stand the best chance of getting where we want to go.
Because we are prepared for the unexpected. And we already knew it could come. And then if it shows up, hey, I have been filtering this. I could expect this. So I know that I can react to this. And that's the I think it's really strong. So yeah, you filter the risk. You get prepared for the worst, or at least for adaptation, and that's the whole thing. I think mountains. And it's funny. I always tell people sticking to the plan is the worst thing you can do in the mountains. If you really stick to a plan because you want to follow up that plan, things can go really wrong. So make sure you got a plan B or a plan C. And in this case, I had a plan B and a C, but I did stick to plan A. But it was well considered.
Well, indeed. You chose to stick. It's a conscious choice to stick to plan A because it's the safest option, but you had backup. Yeah. Always contingency, right? Always what could go wrong. And if it goes wrong, what will I do?
Yeah.
So when you got safely home, and no doubt you took some time to reflect and process over the days ahead.
Well, just very briefly, when we were on that summit, we still had to go 2 hours down to the next mountain hut. But there was a gentle slope angle. Nothing could go wrong there, evidence-wise whatsoever. There's no rocks. There's no rock faces which you can follow whatsoever. So it's quite clear terrain to go to the hut. We arrived there. It was open, and that's always open. It was -3 degrees or something. It was cold. We've been eating. We drank something. We mostly processed. We didn't speak much. We were completely processing the adventure. So that was another night. We had another night to go into the mountains before we could go home. And then that third day, we walked from that mountain hut home. Normally, I would say that would have been a bit of a challenge as well. But after we've been through that third day, it was like, well, let's just walk home. And from Alfred Wills to 6, you have maybe that in mind. It's normally a pretty alpine hike anyway. But compared what we've gone through, that was just getting home. So that was the finish of the story. And and then I've been processing a lot. Like
I can imagine.
Analyzing what went well and what went wrong. And I think that's a tricky one because you can blame yourself. And I did blame myself a little bit, of course. Like, did I do the wrong thing to take the risk into November mountains where the winter is knocking on the door? Was it the right thing to take my friend Anton, with less experience than me, into the mountains? Should I have been more prepared for what could happen? And yes, I have made mistakes. I have taken some risks. But at the end, I really tried to focus on what went well. And so many things went well. And there was a little bit of luck, or maybe a little bit of destiny, or a little bit of help from above, that we had internet, that we had clarity in the head, but also in the weather. But we definitely, after making a few mistakes, because there was a few more I didn't speak about. For example, I forgot the discs on my walking poles. So we sank through the snow, which is with 5-10 centimeters snow, no problem. But with 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters, your poles sink through it because your poles weren't winter yet ready yet. And all winter people know what that means. Oh yeah, we all made that mistake. We forget to put the little disc on our poles because the winter is knocking on the door. It's those things. So there were small mistakes at the start. I think the biggest mistake I made was back to that grid the day in advance or the few days in advance. I think this is something I almost ignored, and I wasn't really well prepared about the situation. And I didn't do my preps very well. And I just were like, well, let's give it a go. And from the moment we got in trouble, the grid really helped us. But we had missed an opportunity to prepare better. So we were surprised by a few things. And of course, the weather can change big time in the mountains. And we had a sort of a microclimate. And we had 40 centimeters of snow at the east face. Well, at the west face, on the way down to the second half, we only had like 20 centimeters of snow. So all kinds of things, lucky and unlucky, came together and made this into this situation.
It's rarely ever one thing, is it? You know, it's always a combination of things. As you say, not having the discs on the ends of your poles that stop the pole sliding into the snow wouldn't be that big a deal in 5 or 10 centimeters of snow, but in 25 to 40, then it becomes a problem. So yeah. If I may, and just something I'm hearing there a little bit maybe before you said of trusting to luck, not that you necessarily thought of it that way, but, you know, had all the conditions been fine, you not properly filling in the grid would not have been an issue. It's only ever a problem when the conditions aren't fine, right? And you never know that in advance. So there's actually that balance between trusting to luck or to your experience, which is valid, and no, let me take care of every last thing just in case.
Yeah. And what if this 5 to 10 centimeters is 25 centimeters of snow? Honestly, if there was a slight risk of 25 centimeters snow, I wouldn't have gone there. Definitely not. So that's very obvious to me.
So Arno, in all of this then, it happened. The thing happened. And thank you so much for sharing it in such depth and with such vulnerability and honesty. But with all of that, as it happened, the way it did, what did you learn about yourself?
An old friend of mine, my old sports teacher and nowadays coach for many years already, he spoke out vakmanschap and meesterschap. For the Dutch listeners, they know what I mean. And I think it's translated to craftsmanship and mastery. So I think that was a very interesting thing to experience. Like, I have to trust on the skills I've been learning for. I have to rely on the experience I have, and based on this luggage, I am able to take decisions and take responsibility and get to safe, because I felt so responsible for Anton, and I felt also a bit sorry, like, oh shit, why did I drag him with me in these adventures? Well, almost stupid me. I try not to say those kind of things, but there's of course a moment you think that, like, oh no. And so it's really that trust in craftsmanship and mastery. If that's the right traduction, I'm not really sure about if that's the rings a bell. And the confidence in each other and helping each other as a team, and being confident, be honest to your feelings and doubts, and share that to your friends, and then helping each other to get through that, and support each other, and trying really to keep your head, to stay calm, to be able to take the right decision. Sometimes breathe for a second, think, and yes, this is the way we have to do it.
Yeah.
And then go for it. Then trust on that decision that at that moment that was the right thing to do.
So you experienced the fear. You had moments where you were truly scared. If you can call to mind one of those moments without necessarily talking about the detail of it, can you remember the feeling of the moment where you felt scared?
Yeah, of course. It's mostly to do with the avalanche risk. The avalanche danger actually is a better word, that it might slide down. And that's something that makes you so small, because that's a powerful, a nature force, which is so much stronger than we are. I mean, especially in harsh conditions with no visibility, that could be really bad news. So that's really, something I was fearing, like, okay, this slope angle is a bit too steep for a day like this. But also I had I was looking for confirmations during the day that actually today it didn't feel that dangerous. And I think that the ski guide would have said to its client, hey guys, lucky us, we got a lot of fresh snow and the conditions are quite safe today, or safe-ish today, and we can have just fun today. Because with his knowledge, he might have judged that way better than I could at that moment. But so it's that fear that was like, no, of course, I'm a bit scared of having serious trouble, but also I'd like to say, no, we have to take the right decisions and really trust it that we will make it together. And yeah, I think I was quite confident that we would. And if we wouldn't have gone up that steep slope, you asked me as well, then we could have died on. I was like, Anton, honestly, with the spirit we had and the clarity we had, we would have made a snow shelter on that safe plateau at the bottom of that last climb, and we would have spent the night there. And then next day you would have traded another plan or whatever, or called a helicopter or whatsoever.
So you knew that in any situation you'd find a way out. Something there about earlier you said, Arno, that there were moments when you started to blame yourself, and then it was almost as if in those moments you said, not for now. I maybe come back to that later, but right now I have a job to do. Right now I acknowledge that I'm feeling those things, but how can I help? How can I move us through? What can I do in this situation? What do I already know? And something about really trusting yourself,
Yeah.
Because in the end, you were the man with the plan, right? Anton was a fabulous support and his faith sounds remarkably helpful, but you were the one. What an extraordinary experience. So has it changed anything for you?
It's interesting. I think, it had quite a lot of impact on me. And sometimes I have the feeling that maybe sometimes the reaction of other people is like, well, could it be that bad? And maybe in my head, it was worse than other would have experienced it. But it was a strong experience and a very good lesson, life lesson, but also a professional lesson for me. Like, the mountains are so much bigger than us human beings. And we think we are in control, but nature is in control. Mountains speak, wise men listen. All those sayings, it is all true. And my respect to nature and mountains is even bigger. I learned a lot of things. My friendship to Anton, we really carried this adventure together. Like, wow, it was such a strong experience. So
I may be, tell me if I'm taking this too far, but I'm imagining now and possibly for some time to come, every time you go out into the mountains, that memory is with you.
Yeah, for example, this weekend. So Anton, it was again that moment that he should come over to have a near adventure together. But I was quite keen to try to launch one more trip and to attract a few more people. And so I said to him, if you are okay with that, let me launch a trip and you will be part of that trip. And then last minute he asked me, Arno, what's the plan? And I think he did really well. He was like, this time I'd like to know about Arno's plan before going. And I agree with him. I think it's a very good lesson as well. And I was like, dude, this is a trip, a commercial trip. And so it will be with clients, participants. So I don't take any risk. I considered going higher up to unmanned huts if the mountains would still be greenish. But knowing that there's snow forecasted, I changed the plan and we go to another area which he knows, and I use private mountain huts. I get the key. There's a heating. We can make a fire inside, and we have a nice, comfy place to spend the night. And we definitely done the right thing, because it was, again, a pretty challenging trip for definitely half the group. It was harsh conditions, long days, but after a big effort outdoors, it's so nice to enjoy the comfort of a hut. You have to warm up yourself, and you enjoy that even more. And I said to the people, I'm so happy I took you to this place and not to an unmanned hut in the Alpine with everything that comes with it.
So I have one last question, Arno, if I may. As you know, I've called this podcast Fearless Forward. And I'm curious, in your life and work, what does Fearless Forward mean to you?
Yeah, we want to move forward. Everyone wants to move forward. We're curious about the future. We're curious in a mountain track. We're curious what is coming next, what is at the other side of that goal. So we are moving forward. Fearless. Like last weekend, I'm fearless because I'm in my comfort zone. In the middle mountains, even with 25 centimeters of snow and a bit of wind, I'm in my comfort zone. This is where I feel fine, and this is where I can move around and move forward without fear. Maybe with some nerve sometimes, wondering, oh, do I do the right thing? Oh, I'm arriving too late. Oh, I see some unhappy faces. So, Arno, you're too late. So, my demons are trying to tell me like I made a mistake. And then luckily, I am able to shut them up a bit. But also people say to me, confirming, no, Arno, it was fine. I was just a bit tired. But I loved every minute of it. And then it's trying to not listen to those limiting beliefs or those demons. And also if they are reality, like with Anton, there was a reason to have some fear, but trying not to fight that, but to listen to that and accept it, and deal with it and speak it out, and then together make a plan and believe in the plan and go for it, and not I don't know, make yourself. It can even make you a bit stronger in a certain way that you can deal with that, but without you saying, okay, you see, this is impossible. We stop. It's not possible. No, there's some fear, but I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Well, if I may, if I can reflect back what I'm hearing here, Arno, it's something like the demons are there. The limiting beliefs are there. They don't have to be in the driving seat.
Yeah.
They give you information. You listen to them, and then you get to decide.
Yeah. And then rely on your craftsmanship and mastery. Like, no, I can do this. And also, yes, there is some discomfort, but that's not the end of the world. And if you can challenge yourself, get through that discomfort, and then arrive at a warm hut, have a nice warm meal, a cold beer even waiting for you, and a nice heating to heat you up, then all those things are easily forgotten, and you can just look back at it with a smile, like, hey, we've done this. And and I think that's and I really love that about it. So again, with clients, I really avoid getting into that situation. I use that grit, but also the preparation part of it. So if I plan this weekend, like last weekend, I really learn again from like, oh no, I really need to be sure what to expect, like weather-wise, and also already adapt. So downgrade things a bit. There might be snow coming. We don't go to the Alpine. We stay lower, and the snow came. And it was, again, quite a lot last weekend. But it was fine. We could deal with that. No problem.
Arno, I can't wait for our next adventure together. You are, as far as I'm concerned, the best guide around here. And I just want to thank you hugely for sharing your story with us here today.
Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your amazing reflections on this. And I would love to take you on another adventure where everyone is getting out of their comfort zone a bit, pushing their limits maybe a bit, but still arriving at the destination with a smile.
That was quite a story, wasn't it? And if you're anything like me, you were right up there with Arno and Anton, wondering how that frightening experience was ever going to end. We also learn quite a bit about how to avoid an avalanche. Mainly that when you're out there in dangerous conditions, you must stay off slopes that are steeper than 30 degrees. But what I really want to focus on to round off this podcast are the lessons that Arno took away from his experience. Most obviously, there were two practical ones. Despite all his accumulated knowledge and expertise, on this occasion, Arno underestimated the risk of the weather changing. He's normally extremely careful in preparing for mountain expeditions, particularly where clients are concerned, using an avalanche risk assessment tool called the Warnemünde 3x3. This time, though, heading out into the apparently temperate mountains with his old friend, he took a few shortcuts. The combined consequences of these might have been fatal, but they weren't. Why not? What stands out for me is the way Arno responded to the unforeseen. He felt fear, knew there was good reason to, but realized that fighting it wouldn't help. He talked about listening to it, accepting it, and using it as the catalyst for making and carrying out an effective plan. In other words, the fear was helpful. Arno knew he had very strong skills, craftsmanship, he called them. This gave him the confidence to think clearly and overcome what he called his demons, the limiting beliefs that can inhibit us in difficult situations. He made a good plan and executed it with determination, and with the bonus of a little luck, it paid off. The experience also gave Arno renewed respect for the power of nature. I love his saying, "Mountains speak, wise men listen," and it strengthened his confidence in his own mastery. He now describes himself as fearless in his comfort zone of medium-altitude mountains. So, when fear is present, pay attention to what it's telling you. If you work with it, it can become an asset. Thank you for listening. Fearless Forward is edited and produced by Mark Stegman. I'll be back with you in 2 weeks in conversation with another leader about how they faced their fears. To be sure of catching it, go to fearlessforward.org, activate push notifications from your favorite podcast source, or subscribe to my weekly bulletin at skillfulleaders.com.